I wasn't planning to go. That was my first instinct when Mom called and said, "We're having a little get-together this Saturday. Just family. It would mean a lot if you came." I hesitated. And she added, "Please, honey. Your dad already put the ribs on to marinate." My stomach twisted. It wasn't about the ribs, obviously. It was about Sabrina and Derek, my younger sister and her husband, and their 3 energetic kids, and my own tolerance level, which had finally thinned out over the years. Still, guilt is a powerful thing. I caved. I told Mom I'd be there, brought a bottle of chilled white wine, and picked up my best friend Jules on the way for moral support. By the time we pulled into my parents' sunny backyard in Mount Pleasant, the party was already in full swing. Red and blue paper streamers were strung along the patio. A Bluetooth speaker was blaring Jimmy Buffett, and a dozen kids were running around barefoot like it was summer camp. I spotted Sabrina immediately, perched on a lounge chair, already tipsy, wearing oversized sunglasses and barking at her kids from under a floppy hat. Derek stood beside the grill shirtless, a beer in one hand, barbecue tongs in the other, pretending he was the king of the world. The air smelled like charcoal, sunscreen, and tension. As Jules and I walked in, I could feel the subtle shift in energy. My sister saw me and rolled her eyes. "Look who decided to show up," she called out loud enough for half the yard to hear. Derek chimed in, grinning. "Did you forget your swimsuit, Eliana? Or are you just too good for pool parties now?" I forced a smile. Jules squeezed my hand. My mom greeted us with open arms, her apron dusted in flour. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered. "They've all been drinking since noon. Just ignore the comments." We tried. We really did. I made small talk with Dad, who was hiding in the whirlpool section of the pool with 2 beers and a hat pulled over his face. Jules chatted with some neighbors. I nibbled on coleslaw and tried to act like I wasn't completely on edge. About 45 minutes in, things took a turn. One of the kids, I think it was Sabrina's middle child, Max, ran full speed toward the pool and shoulder bumped one of the neighbors, nearly knocking her in. She stumbled at the edge, caught herself, and walked off without saying much. But I could see the anger on her face. That was the first red flag. The second came 5 minutes later, when I saw 3 kids, including Max again, charging toward me at full speed, giggling like it was a game. From the corner of my eye, I realized they were trying to push me into the pool. I stepped aside at the last second. All 3 kids launched past me and belly flopped into the shallow end. Screams, splashes, chaos. Most of the adults laughed, but Sabrina didn't. She bolted up from her chair, screamed something incoherent, and ran toward the pool. "You could have helped them," she yelled at me, pointing a manicured finger. "They could have drowned." I blinked. "They're in the shallow end, Bree. They're fine. They were filming. Their phones were in their pockets. You let them destroy their iPhones." "I didn't let them do anything," I said calmly. "You weren't watching them. That's not on me." That's when Derek stormed over. His chest puffed and red from the sun and beer. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" he slurred. "Too good to swim, too good to help?" "I think it's your job to parent your kids," I said. "Not mine." The words hung in the air like smoke from the grill. He lunged forward like he wanted to say more, but then tripped over a lawn chair and face planted on the concrete. Jules and I left while Sabrina screamed at everyone for laughing. And as we drove away, her voice still echoing in my head, I had no idea that this was just the beginning. Jules and I didn't say much on the drive back. The car was quiet, except for the hum of the AC and the low jazz playlist she always kept running on road trips. She glanced at me a few times, probably waiting for me to explode. But I just stared out the window, watching the live oaks roll by, heart pounding with something I couldn't name yet. Not quite anger, not yet sadness. Maybe dread. We got back to my condo a little before 8. Jules stayed for tea and hugs, and after she left, I showered and curled up on the couch, still wearing my towel robe, mind spinning. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a group text. From Sabrina. The first message was a photo of her son Max wrapped in a towel, red-eyed and pouty. The caption: "Traumatized. Hope you're happy." Then came the voice note. I didn't even have to hit play to know the tone. I could already hear the slur and venom in her voice. But I pressed it anyway. "You've always been the cold one, Elle. The calculated one. You don't have kids, so you don't get it. But letting 3 babies fall into a pool and not lifting a finger? I don't care how smart or rich you think you are. That was evil. I stared at my screen. A few more texts rolled in from her husband Derek and their mutual friends, subtle digs, passive-aggressive emojis, and one from a cousin that just said, "Yikes. Rough day." I didn't respond. I blocked them all. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning I got a call from my mom. She was doing her best not to sound rattled, but I could hear it in the way she cleared her throat between sentences. "Honey," she said, "I just wanted to check on you. Last night was not our finest moment." "I'm fine," I said. "I know Sabrina can be a lot. She texted me some things. I don't agree with any of it, okay?" There was a pause. "But there is something else I wanted to ask you." Here it comes, I thought. "Did you, by any chance, give Sabrina permission to let some friends stay at the beach house last weekend?" I sat up straighter. "What?" "Well," Mom continued cautiously, "she mentioned something about guests leaving towels behind. Said her friend Jennifer brought her kids and they spilled something on the rug, but they'd Venmo you for cleaning." "Mom," I said, my voice low and even. I didn't know anyone was staying there. Now it was her turn to go quiet. "I thought you knew. She made it sound like it was all arranged with you." "Nope," I said. Heart racing now. "And I've got smart locks on that house. She shouldn't even have the codes." There was a long pause. "I think she may have copied the code when we gave it to you last Thanksgiving." Mom said quietly, "I'm sorry. I didn't think." "It's okay, I lied. I'll look into it." I hung up and immediately pulled out my laptop. Within minutes, I was logged into the smart security app for the cottage. The access logs showed the door being unlocked 4 different weekends in the past 2 months. Once, for 3 nights straight. My stomach turned. I opened the footage from the last visit, and there it was. A woman I didn't recognize holding a beach tote, a man grilling out front, kids running through the hall barefoot. Not my family. Not my friends. Strangers. A pit formed in my chest. I scrolled through the footage again, frame by frame, face after unfamiliar face. I checked the Wi-Fi usage history, the smart thermostat logs, even the laundry cycles. Everything pointed to regular occupation, and not by my parents. I suddenly remembered something Jules had said months ago. "Why don't you rent it out if you're not using it?" And I'd laughed. "Because that place isn't an Airbnb," I'd replied. "Only family stays there." Now I wasn't so sure. I took a deep breath, opened a private browser tab, and typed in Charleston Vacation Rentals. It only took 10 minutes of clicking before I found it. They are listed under the name Lowcountry Retreat. Was my cottage unmistakable with filtered photos, glowing reviews, and a contact email that read, sabrinahomeservices@gmail.com. I closed the laptop slowly, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just about a messy pool party. This was theft, and it had been going on for a long, long time. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the footage. The voices of strangers echoing through the halls of my house, their laughter bouncing off my furniture, their damp towels thrown over the chairs I'd picked out with my mom. It felt like someone had walked into my room, opened my drawers, worn my clothes, and smirked while doing it. The next morning I got in my car and drove the hour and a half to the cottage. The minute I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The throw blanket I'd folded neatly over the couch was gone. A different one, a cheap fleece with a cartoon seahorse, was draped across it instead. The rug had a faded wine stain near the coffee table. My carefully labeled spice rack had been rearranged. And there were mismatched mugs in the sink. But what truly made my stomach drop was what I found in the linen closet. 12 rolled-up beach towels, none of which were mine. They had tags from a local boutique that catered to high-end vacation rentals. Someone had bought supplies in bulk for guests. I checked the lockbox outside. A second key was gone. The code had been changed from the one I'd set months ago. And worst of all, a laminated instruction sheet had been taped behind the kitchen cabinet door. "Welcome to Lowcountry Retreat. Wi-Fi password, trash schedule, house rules." With Sabrina's name and number listed at the bottom. I stood there in complete silence, listening to the hum of the fridge. The betrayal hit like a wave. Not the splashy cinematic kind, but the cold kind. The kind that numbs you before you even know you're drowning. I sat down at the dining table, pulled out my phone, and called my mom. "I need you to tell me the truth," I said. "How long has Sabrina been using this house?" She hesitated, then sighed. "A while. But I didn't know she was renting it. I swear. I thought she just brought friends sometimes." Mom, she's making money off it. Thousands of dollars. She has it listed online. Another pause. I'm so sorry, she said. And I believed her. But that didn't make it hurt less. I hung up, pulled out my laptop, and logged into the rental site again. This time, I messaged 5 previous guests listed in reviews, pretending to be a prospective renter. 3 of them responded to confirm they'd booked through Sabrina for weekend getaways. One even sent me the invoice she'd emailed, $2,150 for 3 nights. I stared at the number stunned. That was more than I paid in property taxes every quarter. I wasn't angry. I was furious. Not just because of the money, although the money was insulting enough, but because of the audacity. The years of being treated like I was the outsider. The selfish one. The childless sister who didn't get it. The one who made too much money, who didn't need the same things as them. And now they were stealing from me. Behind my back. Under my roof. I stood up. I reset every code on the property's smart lock system. I enabled the alarm and motion sensors. I downloaded all the security footage and emailed copies to myself and my lawyer. Then I called a local property manager, a man named Bradley, someone my dad had mentioned once. He met me within the hour. Kind eyes, gray beard, solid handshake. He walked the property with me, listened carefully, then said something that made me shiver. You're not the first homeowner this has happened to, but you might be the first one who's going to do something about it. By the time I left, I'd signed a contract with him. He checked the house weekly. I ordered new signage. Private property. Video surveillance active. Trespassers will be prosecuted. And as I got back in my car, I took one last look at the little blue cottage. It had always been a gift. A peaceful place for my parents. A quiet escape. But now it was the front line. And I was done being quiet. It didn't take long. 3 days after I locked everything down and signed with Bradley, Sabrina showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was on a Zoom call when the doorbell rang. At first, I ignored it. Then it rang again. And again. I finally muted myself and walked to the door, half expecting a package or neighbor. But when I peeked through the peephole, there she was. A tight ponytail. Sunglasses on her head. Arms crossed, jaw clenched like she'd been practicing a speech in the car. I didn't open it. Eliana, I know you're in there, she said. You've made your point. Now open the door. I opened it a crack. You're not supposed to be here. Oh, come on, she huffed, pushing past me before I could stop her. We're family. I stood there, stunned as she plopped herself on my couch like she owned the place. You locked me out of the cottage, she said, like she was talking about a beach club. Without even talking to me. I didn't think there was anything to talk about, I replied, voice steady. You've been illegally renting out a property you don't own. She rolled her eyes. It's not like you needed the money. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Elle? Her voice pitched higher. You don't even use it. You work all the time. You're always traveling or working late. I figured. Why let it sit there? My blood was boiling. So you figured you'd list my property online, use my electricity, my furniture, my linens, and just... What? Keep the cash. She didn't answer right away. Then quieter, we're struggling. Derek's commissions dropped. The kids' tuition. Our mortgages, it's a lot. Then get a second job. Sell something. Don't steal from your sister. Her eyes narrowed. You always think you're better than us. I stared at her. No, Sabrina. I think I work hard. And I don't expect other people to clean up after my messes. She stood up then. You've always been selfish. You mean I've always had boundaries, I shot back. There's a difference. She stormed out without another word. But it wasn't over. That night, I got a string of nasty texts from Derek, accusing me of being heartless, ungrateful, saying I owed them because I was the one with all the advantages in life. And then came the veiled threat. Don't forget who your family is. This house has always been part of the family. I forwarded everything to my attorney, then to my parents. The next morning, my dad called. Eliana, he said. We had no idea. None. I believe you, I said quietly. We're ashamed. Your mom is devastated. She trusted them. I did too. There was a long pause. Do what you have to do, he said. They won't be using that place again. You have our full support. Something in me released at those words. Years of trying to keep peace. of biting my tongue to keep the family together, of being the mature one, the quiet one. Gone. My parents finally saw it. I wasn't causing the divide. I was responding to it. That weekend, Bradley texted me photos of the new lock system he'd installed. Motion lights, new cameras, reinforced deadbolts. He even sent a photo of the sign I'd requested. Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted. Then he added, smart move locking down now. Holidays are coming. That's when problems usually start. He didn't know how right he was. Because less than a week later, Derek and a cousin would break in, and all hell would break loose. It was the Friday before Thanksgiving. I was in Savannah for a client conference, sipping overpriced hotel coffee and half listening to a speaker drone on about risk mitigation when my phone started buzzing. First it was a call from Bradley, then a second, then a third. I stepped out into the hallway, heart thudding, and finally picked up. Bradley? He didn't waste time. Eliana, it's the house. Someone just broke the gate lock. Cameras show Derek and another man, not sure who, on the property. They're trying to get inside. I froze. Are you sure it's Derek? I know his face, he said grimly. And I already called the sheriff. Deputies are en route. I'm watching the footage now. They've got tools. Big ones. My stomach dropped. I thanked him and hung up. My hands were shaking. I called my lawyer, then my parents. Mom was in tears by the time I finished. Dad was silent, the kind of silence that says rage is brewing just below the surface. I kept checking my phone every few minutes until Bradley called back. They're in custody, he said. Sheriff's team caught them coming out the front door. Derek tried to play it off. Said it was all a misunderstanding. Let me guess, I said bitterly. He said it was a family property. Bingo. Claimed you'd given them permission. But we've got it all on camera. And your signs are clearly posted. Later that evening, Bradley sent me photos. My beautiful front gate had been mangled. The chain cut clean through by what looked like a commercial-grade angle grinder. The door handle was splintered, the lockbox dented and dangling. Inside the utility room, I could see muddy boot prints, an open liquor cabinet, and an empty pizza box. They'd made themselves comfortable, but they hadn't counted on the new camera system or Bradley's fast reaction. By Saturday morning, Derek and his cousin were both sitting in the county jail, charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property, criminal trespass, communicating threats from what they yelled during arrest. I didn't even know that last part until Bradley told me. Apparently, while being handcuffed, Derek had shouted, I'm gonna make her regret this. She thinks she's better than us, she'll pay for this. All of it caught on body cam. I felt sick. My lawyer called that evening. We're pressing charges, he said. And if you want, we can move forward with the civil suit too. I think we've got grounds. I want both, I said flatly. I was done playing polite. The next day, my phone lit up with unknown numbers. Voicemails, emails, texts from Sabrina, pleading and raging in equal measure. He was drunk. It was a mistake. He didn't mean it. You're tearing this family apart. Just drop the charges. For the kids. I didn't respond. By Monday, they'd finally managed to make bail, apparently after scraping together funds from friends and a few pawned electronics. Sabrina called my mother, sobbing. My mother called me, heartbroken. Eliana, do you really have to go through with this? Yes, I said. I really do. But Thanksgiving. There will be no Thanksgiving this year, I said. And I meant it. That night, I emailed my lawyer every single message Sabrina and Derek had sent. I even included screenshots of the original rental listings under Sabrina's email and the guest messages I'd saved. Evidence. Motive. History. He replied with a single sentence. They picked the wrong woman to mess with. By Tuesday morning, it felt like my entire life had been consumed by court filings, restraining orders, and insurance adjusters. My lawyer, Ms. DeMarco, moved fast. She'd already filed a formal complaint for the property damage and started drafting a civil suit to recoup financial losses from the unauthorized rentals. According to her estimates, Sabrina and Derek had made somewhere between $28,000 and $36,000 renting out the beach cottage over the last 2.5 years. And that didn't include the cost of repairs, the lock system, security upgrades, or Bradley's retainer. This isn't just trespassing, she said during a call. This is fraud. And you'd be well within your rights to go after every cent. I wasn't sure if I wanted the money. I wanted the peace. I wanted them gone. But the money? That would make the message clear. You don't take from me and walk away unscathed. That same day, I got a visit at my office. I was coming back from a meeting when my receptionist whispered, "Your sister's in the lobby." I froze. "Sabrina." She nodded. She said it's urgent. I took a deep breath, stepped into the lobby and found both Sabrina and Derek standing there. They looked like shadows of themselves. Sabrina's makeup was smudged, her hair thrown up in a messy bun. Derek had a bruised lip, probably from the scuffle with deputies. Both of them stared at me with glassy eyes. "Eliana," she began, stepping toward me. I held up my hand. "No, don't even try. Please," she begged. "Just listen. We're sorry. We didn't mean for any of this to happen. It got out of hand. You stole from me," I said coldly. "For years. We were desperate." Derek muttered. "Then you should have asked for help," I snapped. "Not broken into my house." There was a pause. Then Sabrina blurted, "But you have so much. You don't even use it." And there it was again, that twisted sense of entitlement. That belief that because I had worked hard, been smart, and made sacrifices, I somehow owed them a piece of what I'd built. I took a step closer. I bought that house for Mom and Dad because they dreamed of it their whole lives. I didn't tell you because I knew this would happen. And you proved me right. Tears welled in Sabrina's eyes. "The kids. Don't," I warned. "Don't you dare use your kids as leverage." Then I turned to Derek. "If you try contacting me again, if you so much as step on that property, you'll be facing more than misdemeanors. Understand?" He nodded slowly. I turned and walked away. Later that night, my dad called. He sounded tired. "Your mother's been crying all day," he said. "This whole thing has her torn up." I know, I said, heart heavy. "But I'm not backing down. I'm not asking you to." That surprised me. "I'm angry too," he admitted. "You gave us that house. And they used it like it was theirs. Mocked you, envied you, and then helped themselves like you didn't matter. There was a silence between us." "I'm proud of you, Eliana," he said finally. "Even if this is breaking the family apart, maybe it needed to break." And in that moment, I felt the tightness in my chest loosen just a little. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the cold one. I was just the one who finally said no and meant it. A week later, I received a courier envelope at my office. Inside, a cashier's check for $6,000 and a typed letter signed by both Sabrina and Derek. The letter was a bizarre blend of humility and desperation. They acknowledged the break-in, admitted the rentals, and apologized, at least on paper. They promised to stay away from the property unless invited, and asked me to please drop the criminal charges. Because if I didn't, Derek could lose his job and Sabrina's teaching license, though expired, could be flagged permanently. It was the most honest thing they'd ever done. I sat with the letter for an hour, rereading every line, staring at the check on my desk. The $6,000 wouldn't cover everything, not even close. But it wasn't really about the money anymore. It was about the principle. That evening, I forwarded everything to Ms. DeMarco. Her reply came quickly. "Let's wrap this up. We'll draft a mutual settlement and no contact agreement. You'll retain all legal rights to the property, and they'll legally forfeit any claim to use it again. We'll include a restraining clause. This ends everything. And the charges? That's your call. But if they violate anything, we reopen it all." I nodded to myself. I didn't want to waste another year of my life fighting people who had never once apologized in person, never once said we were wrong without a threat behind it. So we drafted the agreement. It included a no-contact clause, a full acknowledgement that Eliana owned the cottage, a ban from entering the property, a signed admission of unauthorized rentals, a clause requiring them to cover legal fee. Yes, if violated. 3 days later they signed. Derek did it first. He barely looked at the papers, just scribbled his name like he couldn't get it over with fast enough. Sabrina tried to argue about the tone of the agreement, but Ms. DeMarco wasn't having it. "You're lucky we're not pressing criminal restitution charges," she said coolly. They left without a word. The next day, I met with the county's assistant district attorney. I explained that we'd reached a private civil settlement and that I'd be willing to drop the break-in charges. as long as the court kept a record of the agreement. He agreed but added something that made my spine tingle. If they show up again even once, we won't be so lenient. And trust me, judges here don't like people who waste the court's time twice. I nodded. That was good enough for me. Back at home I told my wife, yes I said wife in this version. Eliana is married to her longtime partner Jules, which I hadn't explicitly stated before. Jules listened silently, then finally said, I'm proud of you. I know how hard this has been. It's not just about the house, I admitted. It's about everything. All the years of being treated like I didn't matter. Like I was some resource to be used. Jules smiled gently. You just flipped the script. You finally put yourself first. That night we opened a bottle of wine, turned off our phones and sat on the balcony in silence. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. Not victorious. Not vengeful. Just light. Like I'd finally stopped carrying the weight of a family that only called me when they needed something. I hadn't burned the bridge. They had. I'd simply walked away. 2 weeks after the settlement was signed, I finally returned to the beach cottage. Just me, a small overnight bag and a thermos of coffee. The drive down the coast felt different this time, quieter somehow, but not empty. It felt like space had opened up inside me, like the parts of my mind that used to ache were, just still. When I pulled up to the cottage, the sun was beginning to dip behind the dunes, casting long golden shadows across the porch. The gate, freshly repainted by Bradley, creaked a little when I opened it. The camera above blinked once, acknowledging me, the real owner. I stepped inside. Everything smelled clean. Calm. Bradley and his team had replaced the broken lock and repaired the gouges in the wood. A small bouquet of wildflowers sat on the dining table with a sticky note that read, Welcome back, B. I smiled. I made tea, lit a candle, and stood barefoot by the sliding doors, watching the waves roll in like they had for centuries, indifferent to the messes of human lives. This place, for so long, had been a gift for my parents. Then it became a battleground. Now it was mine again. I walked room to room, touching the walls gently, not to inspect damage, but to reconnect. It felt like I was walking through an old friendship, one that had been strained, misunderstood, and now slowly healing. Upstairs, I set a framed print on the dresser in the guest room, a photo of my parents laughing by a campfire, taken the first weekend I gave them the house. Next to it I placed a small, handwritten note in my own careful cursive. For the ones who loved gently. For the ones who never took too much. For the version of me that forgot she was allowed to say no. She's not coming back. Later, I curled up on the balcony in a blanket and watched the stars appear, one by one. No texts. No buzzing phones. No guilt twisting my stomach. Just the wind, the tide, and the soft, rhythmic hush of peace. I thought about all the versions of myself that had tried so hard to be the good sister. The one who showed up, bit her tongue, kept the peace even when it fractured her soul. I mourned her a little. Then I let her go. By the time morning came, the cottage had wrapped around me like a second skin. Not just a house. Not just a symbol of boundaries finally enforced. But a sanctuary. For me. For what I was building next. Before I left one last thing in the drawer of the living room credenza, a new set of rules, laminated just like Sabrina used to do. Only this time, they were mine. No one enters without permission. Respect the space. Family is earned, not assumed. Eliana matters here. I locked the door, walked to my car, and looked back one last time. Not to mourn what was lost, but to honor what was reclaimed. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? What moment in Eliana's story spoke to you the most, the betrayal, the confrontation, or her final piece? Share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story.